Well, good morning and welcome to the University Unitarian Church of Seattle on this Sunday morning in late August. I'm Bruce Bode. I'm the retired minister from across the Puget Sound in Port Townsend, Washington. I served the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship there for 14 years, from 2004 to 2018. And checking my records, I see that this is my fourth time to be speaking here with you folks, which included last year about this same time and under very similar circumstances. And speaking of those circumstances and the protocols involved with them, I have these announcements. In alignment with recent Washington State expansion of indoor masking requirements, UUC is asking the congregation to put on masks now and continue wearing them while in the church building starting today. In addition, UUC will begin today to follow the recommendations of public health authorities, music professionals, and the Unitarian Universalist Association in suspending indoor congregational singing until further notice. This is a very difficult decision. We thank you for your commitment to join this congregation in doing everything we can to support the public health. Watch for more information from the church this week about changing protocols at UUC to help safeguard everyone's health at this time, as well as current plans for Homecoming Sunday that was scheduled for September 12. And then I have these additional announcements. UUC's Sunday welcoming teams are ready to welcome new and returning greeters, ushers, coffee crew, and bookstore volunteers. It's a great way to serve the congregation, meet new friends, and have some fun at the same time. Back to Church brunch and orientation is next Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. Bring your face mask and get in on the latest craze to hit UUC, the Seattle Sip and Snarf. I don't know what's going on here, but it sounds interesting. Register now in UUC Connect. If your usual route to UUC includes the Montlake Bridge, be prepared for an even bigger closure next weekend as the roadway shifts to the new Montlake Lid. Join the UUC board on Zoom right after the service today for a conversation with the board. This will be on the usual sermon discussion link listed in UUC Connect. And finally, we also welcome you to enjoy coffee and conversations immediately following the service outside the upper and lower entrances to the church, with seating in the Memorial Garden and the lower plaza next to the parking lot. So these are the announcements that I was given. And let me say that despite the ongoing hindrances, I do appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning, and I want to thank my colleague and friend John Luopa for the invitation to speak here. I also want to thank the various staff members that I have worked with: Susan St. James, Jessica Monahan, Byron Christad, Nick Barnard, Melody Moberg, and Janine Larson. All of them have assisted and helped in the preparation and now the implementation of this service, which continues now with our prelude from Frédéric Chopin, played by our guest pianist, Nick Abbott. Nick. Holy and beautiful is the custom by which we gather ourselves together this Sunday morning, whether here in this sanctuary or virtually at home. Here we come to give our thanks, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones, to seek that which is authentic, and to serve integrity, beauty, and the qualities of life that make it rich and whole. Through this hour breathes the worship of all the ages, the sacred music of all history. Blessed are the ears that hear that eternal sound. Today's soloist and song leader is Callie Lindemeyer, who will now sing our doxology. Again, if you are in the sanctuary, we ask that you not sing today. But of course, if you are at home, you are welcome, invited to sing along as you wish. The words will appear on the screen. My sermon message this morning will explore the mystery of memory and what it is that is passed on from one life to another. For our meditation in this regard, I will read a piece by the Reverend Kathleen McTeague titled, "They Are With Us Still," which speaks of the ongoing ties that we have to those who have gone before us. They Are With Us Still by Kathleen McTeague. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us, it is right to remember the names of those who gave us the strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. I invite you now into a time of silence in which you may wish to bring forward to your heart and mind the names and memories of those who have and who are sustaining you in your journey through life. Let us be together in the silence. Amen.
Hello, I'm Mike Kasperzak. I give time and money to our congregation, and I want to tell you about the adhesive that keeps me here at UUC. I could try to convince you that it's the exquisite pleasure of being our congregation's treasurer, or that it's serving on the racial justice team. These are important to me, but they're a manifestation of something deeper. I could contend that being a UU and a UUC member makes me a better person. I hope so. I'm inclined to think this is true, but it's still a side effect. It's not why I stay. What it comes down to is that UUC is my community. We humans need community. Community isn't touristic or consumerist, here today, gone tomorrow. Covenant binds our UUC community. Basically, I commit to loving the hell out of you all beyond reason and even hope, especially when, as sometimes happens, you exasperate the hell out of me, and vice versa. This covenant stuff is hard, it's awkward, it's glorious, it's essential. UUC is worth it. So give as you are able, and please say with me, this church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
Thank you, Kelly and Nick. One of my favorite readings on the meaning of memory and on remembering individuals who have shaped our lives but who are no longer with us is from Dr. Albert Schweitzer in this slim, beautiful little volume, a classic really, titled Memoirs of Childhood and Youth. Albert Schweitzer lived from 1875 to 1965, and this passage that I'm going to read was written in 1923, so he would have been in his late 40s at the time that he wrote this. He writes, "One thing stirs me as I look back at my youthful days, namely, the fact that so many people gave me something or were something to me without knowing it. Such people with whom I have perhaps never exchanged a word. Yes, and others about whom I have merely heard things by report, have had a decisive influence upon me. They entered into my life and became powers within me. Much that I should otherwise not have felt so clearly or done so effectively was felt or done as it was, because I stand, as it were, under the sway of these people. Hence, I always think that we all live spiritually by what others have given us in the significant hours of our lives. These significant hours do not announce themselves as coming, but arrive unexpected. Nor do they make a great show of themselves. They pass almost unperceived. Often, indeed, their significance comes home to us first as we look back, just as the beauty of a piece of music or of a landscape often strikes us first in our recollection of it. Much that has become our own in gentleness, modesty, kindness, willingness to forgive, in veracity, loyalty, resignation under suffering, we owe to people in whom we have seen or experienced these virtues at work, sometimes in a great matter, other times in a small. A thought which had become act sprang into us like a spark and lighted a new flame within us. I do not believe that we can put into anyone ideas which are not in him or her already. As a rule, there are in everyone all sorts of good ideas ready like tinder. But much of this tinder catches fire or catches it successfully only when it meets some flame or spark from outside, that is, from some other person. Often, too, our own light goes out and is rekindled by some experience we go through with a fellow human. Thus, each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flames within us. If we had before us those who have thus been a blessing to us and could tell them how it came about, they would be amazed to learn what had passed over from their lives into our own. So too, not one of us knows what effect our lives produce and what we give to others. That is hidden from us and must remain so, though we are often allowed to see some little fraction of it so that we might not lose courage. The way in which power works is a mystery. Hymn number 96, I Cannot Think of Them as Dead. What remains after the death of a loved one? And what is it that is passed on from one life to another? There's a poem that I have carried with me and reflected on for many years that suggests an answer to these questions. The poem is titled "Not Even Death." It's written by Margaret Jane Cole. Interestingly, I can't tell from this poem whether the author herself is near death or whether it is the loved one to whom she is addressing the poem that is near death. But to my mind, the poem works either way or both ways. Not Even Death by Margaret Jane Cole. There will be something here, some part of this left over past our final soft caress. A breeze at twilight carrying a kiss. The fragrance of a petaled loveliness that we have known. Some little shining edge of ecstasy on beauty's golden dart. And we will stand beside the jasmine hedge again, and love will spring from heart to heart. For memory will keep what it has heard forever etched upon the heart's own seed. And time shall not erase one tender word that love has written down for future need. Oh, dearest, hold this knowledge and be glad. Not even death destroys what love has had. This tender, touching poem, which, as I say, I've lived with for years, suggests that the heart is like a storehouse where seeds of memory are kept and preserved. The image that comes to my mind is that of a pomegranate fruit with its multitude of gem-like crimson-colored seeds. Each seed, as it were, having a tender memory of love etched upon it. A little packet of information that at the appropriate time will germinate, sprout, take root, grow, blossom, and bear fruit. Interestingly, these seeds of memory in the storehouse of our heart are not necessarily known to us at the time. For seeds, of course, are often tiny little things, so tiny that you don't even know that they're adhering to you, as, for example, when you walk through a field of grasses and wild flowers or through a woods, and the seeds from the various plants, unbeknownst to you, stick to your clothing, attach to the hair of your head, gather in the cuffs of your pants, and all without your awareness. You don't even know that you are collecting them, carrying them, and scattering them. So too, little seeds of memory stick to us unobtrusively, unbeknownst to ourselves or to those from whom we are receiving these memories. Poet Robert Bly, in his poem 4 Ways of Knowledge, says that each day we are asked to remember one or two things, just one or two things each day as we go through life. These are things that our parents aren't aware that we are remembering. They're things that aren't the national news of the day, and they're things that often we ourselves are not aware that we are remembering. We don't know and can't control why we remember what we remember. But apparently, something in us wants to or needs to remember. Something in us, our heart, let us say, wants and needs to remember. Our heart, a symbol of our deepest emotional self, Our heart wants and needs to collect these memories and store them for future reference and need. And our soul, a symbol of our deepest interior self and of that which most essentially belongs to us. Our soul also wants and needs to gather and collect memories that will be useful for it in the future. And we, in our conscious selves, don't even know why at the time. Maybe later we will learn why these seeds of memory adhered to us. Maybe later we will learn why the heart and why the soul collected, gathered, and stored the particular memories they did. But at the time, we really don't know what we are gathering or why. Do you know why you remember what you remember? Many of you here present or tuned in today have had many years of gathering memories. But have you figured out why the particular seeds of memory that adhered to you did so? Why do the heart and the soul gather the memories they do? These are memories that are often, even usually, utterly strange, odd little things with no apparent rhyme or reason. It's not a rational thing. It's not an intellectual thing. The things that we remember, as Robert Bly suggests, are not what our parents would think we might remember, and of course, often they just assume we wouldn't remember what we do remember. Well, the things that they wanted to teach us are often completely forgotten. Here's a little example of the oddness of memory, and it comes from a memorial service that I officiated some years ago. In the part of the service where we had a gathering and sharing of memories, a granddaughter of the deceased woman stood to speak about her dear departed grandmother. I have the oddest little memory of my grandmother, the woman said. I remember that when she was eating and nearly all the food on her plate was gone, she would use her little finger to pick up the crumbs from the plate. Then she would put her little finger to her mouth and eat those crumbs. And in this way, she cleaned her plate. The granddaughter continued, I don't know why I remember that, but I do. And now I find myself doing the very same thing. When I am about finished eating, I pick up the crumbs from my plate with my little finger, and I put them to my mouth. And when I do, I think of grandmother. Crumbs on the plate, little crumbs of no apparent account. And yet these crumbs are the seeds of memory. What is imparted to us is not necessarily, or perhaps even usually, what others have tried to impart to us. Actually, what others try to impart to us is often remembered, if at all, only negatively. What is most useful to us, it seems, are seeds of memory that we don't even know we are receiving and which others don't even know that they are giving. What is remembered by us is that which has heart stuff attached to it or soul stuff, something that our heart is pulled by or something that our soul takes note of. So what do the heart and the soul like to remember. The heart, that which relates to our deepest emotional being, likes the following things, I think: connection, care, concern, and courtesy. And also this: kindness, gentleness, tenderness, and modesty. In other words, the heart likes what it itself is. And the soul, that essential, unoriginated fire of which we are a part, what does the soul like? It likes the following, I think: reality, vitality, authenticity, and spontaneity. In other words, the soul likes what it itself is. And so, the heart and the soul, usually without our conscious knowledge, gather, collect, store, and preserve seeds of memory so that they themselves might be nourished. And this may give us a clue as to how we should live our own lives and what it is that we give or have given to others. For we truly give to others when we give of ourselves, naturally, spontaneously, lovingly, and without necessarily the shaping of forethought, and certainly not the shaping by manipulation. We have to let go. We have to let the heart bubble over. We have to let the soul have its play. Who has dropped seeds of memory into your heart, into your soul? Some years ago, reading Bill Moyer's interviews with American poets, I was struck by an interview with a contemporary American poet of Chinese descent by the name of Li Young Lee. I heard him speak a few years ago here in Seattle. Beautiful poet. Li Young Lee's father, as his son describes him, was a brilliant man of huge intellectual and artistic talents. Also a wild and exuberant man, a scholarly man with command of 7 languages, an entrepreneur who could make money and as easily let it go, and a man who later in life became a Christian evangelist and finally a Presbyterian minister. And he was a forbidding presence of a man, a person who felt he needed to give an appearance of strength, and an individual who could not allow doubt into his public or even his private conversation. And he was a demanding man to his children, very high standards. He was the template by which his sons and daughters were to measure their lives. But what was remembered of this man? No doubt all of this had gone into his children in some way or another. But what his son, the poet Li Young Lee, remembered and appreciated was the opportunity to read his father's Bible after his father's death. And what did Li Young Lee find there in his father's Bible? He found notations in the margins of his father's Bible. Notations related to questions and doubts his father had. Questions and doubts his son had not known his father entertained because his father had never expressed them to his son or perhaps to anyone else. So there, in his father's Bible, in the margins of his father's Bible, at the edge of his father's outward life and character, Li Young Lee saw a father in conversation with the sacred writings, and he saw, for the first time, a father in search, in doubt, and in need. For the first time, in other words, he saw a human father. And what a gift this was for his searching son. and how thankful his son was for this gift. These seeds of memory that his father didn't even know he was passing on to his son. Seeds of memory, as I say, dropped in the margins of the sacred writings. Note, not in the sacred text itself, not in what was standard and expected, not in the holy words, but off to the side, in the margins, at the edge, scribbled, some no doubt illegible. These were the seeds, tiny, apparently insignificant, scattered seeds, not expected to be seen or found or used. These were the seeds that his son valued the most and found the most useful. Li Young Lee's father was human in other ways as well, and he planted other seeds of memory, gave his son other gifts that the poet didn't know he was receiving at the time, nor did his father know that these were the seeds he was planting or the gifts that he was giving. One day, in his adulthood, Li Young Lee, now married, was carefully and tenderly removing a splinter from under the thumbnail of his wife's right hand when it dawned on him where his capacity to so tenderly attend to her in this way had come from. Li Young Lee wrote about his discovery in a poem titled "The Gift." And let me introduce this poem to you with the poet's own comment about the precipitating event and the experience that lay behind this poem. In his interview with Bill Moyers, Li Young Lee said, "I was with my wife in a hotel, and I woke up and heard her sobbing. I looked for her, and she was sitting on the edge of the bathtub, sobbing and holding her hand. I noticed that her hand was bleeding, and when I looked, there was a splinter under her thumbnail. My father was dead at the time, but when I bent down to remove the splinter, I realized that I had learned that tenderness from my father." The Gift by Li Young Lee. To pull the metal splinter from my palm, my father recited a story in a low voice. I watched his lovely face and not the blade. Before the story ended, he'd removed the iron sliver I thought I'd die from. I can't remember the tale, but hear his voice still, a well of dark water, a prayer. And I recall his hands, 2 measures of tenderness he laid against my face, the flames of discipline he raised above my head. Had you entered that afternoon, you would have thought you saw a man planting something in a boy's palm, a silver tear, a tiny flame. Had you followed that boy, you would have arrived here, where I bend over my wife's right hand. Look how I shave her thumbnail down so carefully. She feels no pain. Watch as I lift the splinter out. I was 7 when my father took my hand like this. And I did not hold that shard between my fingers and think, metal that will bury me, christen it little assassin, or going deep to my heart. And I did not lift up my wound and cry, death visited here. No, No, I did what a child does when he's given something to keep. I kissed my father. My sermon message concludes with the singing of a haunting, wistful hymn from our Singing the Living Tradition hymnal. The hymn is titled, All My Memories of Love, and the lyrics are from the 20th century Russian poet Anna Akhmatova, translated by the Reverend Mark Bellatini, who was instrumental in creating our Singing the Living Tradition hymnal. Callie Lindemeyer, accompanied by Nick Abbott, will now sing All My Memories of Love. It's been good to be with you again, and I thank you, those here, for your attentiveness this morning. I also, again, want to thank those who have assisted in this service, particularly Byron, who's been working with me and us, getting everything organized here. I will be available following the postlude to greet you outside, masked and socially, though not spiritually, distanced. My closing words this morning are from the poet, the novelist, environmentalist Wendell Berry. We clasp the hands of those who go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life, who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it except in fragments.
You're muted.